guys, I hope everybody is having a fantastic day, whether you're watching this in the morning, in the afternoon, or in the evening. I am glad you are here. If you're so inclined, please hit the subscribe button below and the bell icon. That'll notify you when I release new videos and when my live streams are getting ready to air. I'll jump right into it today, guys, and my title was not designed to be misinformational. I should have said my top current fidgety knives. So these are the top current fidgety knives as of January, middle of January 2023. And these are going to be knives that, for one way or another, and I've picked 5 out of my collection, give me a lot of reasons to enjoy having them in my hand, to enjoy whether I'm cutting or whether I'm driving or whether I'm at work or whether I'm thinking. I can kind of mindlessly deploy and close these knives. And this Vox Dapper is not one of them, but it is an honorable mention. It is a knife that is so far out of my realm of what I would consider a fidgety knife. For one, it's a single deployment knife, flipper only. It doesn't have any flickability, even though it does. You can actually flick it from the fuller if you get it right. But this little knife is tuned so well. The detent is so snappy and the lock is so droppy that it's almost like a double detent, like the little Vero Neuron double detent. That again is not a traditional fidget knife, but don't overlook knives that might not meet the traditional requirements, quote unquote requirements, of a fidgety knife. Because the Vox Dapper is a great little knife and it's an honorable mention. But we're going to start off with number 5, and number 5 is the most economical entry into this group. And this is the Kizer Comerant. Guys, I almost bought this knife again in titanium, the frag pattern when it came out, and any of the titanium patterns that came out. I only own one of these. It is what I consider a fantastic knife. I'm not even bothered by the pelican look of it. I think the blade looks kind of cool. It doesn't strike me as one of the ugliest knives ever. It's a deep hollow grind blade, so it's very slicey. It has multiple deployment methods. So I've got a traditional flipper, I've got a front flipper, thumb deployment, or the middle finger reverse flick. Or I can just hit the button and actuate it with a wrist flick, which I never do. But again, this knife, I drove from Alabama to, I want to say it was Winter Park, Florida, for a bunch of conferences, and had this in my hand for probably 6 straight hours, so much that I loosened the pivot up, just flicking this knife, deploying it, driving with it, and fidgeting. So the Kizer Comerant, if you find it now on White Mountain Knives or on one of the other sites, you'll find it for well under $100 in G10. Or if you find one of the more premium versions, I think everything about this knife, if you can get past the look, which to me, again, I think it's kind of borderline sexy, but I'm kind of weird that way. I like the look of it. I would pay more money for this knife to replace it if I was replacing it in a titanium. But it's definitely a winner. Fit and finish is fantastic. G10 feels great. Pocket clip works great. All the deployment methods are sound. The buttons very smooth. Just a real winner in the Kizer Comerant or Cormorant. So that'll be our number 5, and we'll move it off to the side. And we'll go to number 4. Which number 4 is a very unique knife that only has one method of deployment, but it has a new quote-unquote locking mechanism, the super lock, which actually did come out before the AD 20.5. You might have seen it on the Terrain 365. I forget the name of that little knife. But anyway, this is the Wii Vision R. The Wii Vision R, what makes this a very fidgety, very enjoyable knife for me is the way that the lock works. It's a very ergonomical knife to flick, to do the middle finger flick, which a lot of people don't like. You can also do a thumb flick. You can slow roll it if you prefer that method of opening your knives. You can two-hand open it if you want to, but the great thing to me about this particular knife is the way that the lock disengages. You simply lift up on this little bar and it closes the knife. So unlike a 80-20.5 shark lock where you've got the spring and the mechanism all up here, this bar connects to a spring down here in the handle. So the design and the lockup are both very different than the 80-20.5 Demco lock, and to me the lock is more enjoyable to fidget with. That's going to be very much personal preference, guys. Keep in mind this is a knife that I missed out on at Blade Show because I picked up the Wii Mini Malice instead. I did not even realize what I was looking at when I looked at this. I didn't realize it had the Snex lock, so I walked out of Blade Show 2022 without this and went back the next day to get it, and they were sold out, and then I chased it for months. So maybe I'm a little biased, but I love this knife as a fidgety knife. It didn't place higher just because it's a single method of deployment, but the Super Lock makes it just a super fidgety knife. So we'll call that number 4, the Wii Vision R. Number 3, and when I say number 3, it is a fantastic fidgety beast. This is my Smock, Spyderco Smock. Came originally with G10 and carbon fiber scales. I upgraded those to titanium raylight scales in a basket weave pattern. This knife has a flipper tab to deploy it, and then it's got this button which is really the reverse of a compression lock. When that locks up there, I don't know if you can see, but it's like a compression lock that has a little device that allows you to push it through, kind of like a CME, one of Justin's Compression Made Easy over at OCD for EDC, who sells those for lefties and for anybody else who's looking to make their compression lock operate more like a button lock. But this Spyderco Smock was unique in a lot of different ways. When it first came to me, it had 2 detents, which was really neat. It had a detent up on the front and a detent on the back of the ball, because it would open reliably and then it would close a little bit more. You had to have more intention to close it. Where I wanted it to be fall shutty, I watched several videos about how you can remove that secondary detent ball in the spring, which I did, and I kept it in the original box. So if I ever go to sell this knife, which I won't, I'll be able to include it in the box for whoever were to buy the knife if they wanted to have that secondary detent put back in. It's real easy. You just take the knife apart, you lay a little spring down in the detent ball, and then you lay the little ball in on top of it and put it back together. Super easy mod. And if you've got a Spyderco Smock and you still have 2 detent balls in it, or it doesn't drop shut like this and you'd like it to, there are a lot of videos on YouTube showing you how to remove that secondary detent. Nick Shabazz's disassembly video gets into it quite in detail. But the Smock, guys, is just great. I put a Lynch deep carry clip on it. I carry this knife all the time. It's got a super wicked hollow grind. Probably one of the sliciest knives in my game. I'm going to be doing a video coming up on the sliciest knives. And when I'm talking about slicing, I'm talking about slicing paper, slicing meat, you know, whatever you'd be slicing. They're going to be thin bladed knives. But this will definitely be on that list as well, because it is a very, very slicey knife, but it's also a very fidgety knife. Has several different ways to deploy. You can thumb flick it, you can finger roll it, and then you can use the flipper tab. But we'll call that number 3, and that is the Spyderco Smock. Moving up, it gets really close here because both of these knives are fantastic. Both of these knives are 2 of my favorites. And we'll start off with, we'll call both of these number 1.5. And I'll tell you why. The second one is the EMP EDC Nymble, probably one of my favorite overall knives. And then the Grant Gripper, which is another one of my overall favorite knives. This knife's a lot bigger than this knife, but they both have similar methods of multiple deployment. For example, the Grant Gripper, I have a flipper tab. God, listen to that lock up. I've got a top flipper, front flipper, which I missed the first time. We got a fuller that I can flick, or the finger hole. Thumb deploy it. I can get down lower on the fuller and flick it. Again, just a very fidgety knife, very well tuned, OEM by Best Tech. The details on this knife are outstanding. It does have a long blade, right under a 4-inch blade, I believe, but it's a deep, wicked hollow grind. Comes out to a very acute point. I'm talking a splinter remover point. Guys, look at the jimping on that blade. We always talk about the jimping stopped short here. I wish the jimping continued out there. Well, Jason Grant Grippers gives you full handle access, plus a choil that you can easily choke up on, and anywhere that you want to rest your finger along this beefy spine, you've got jimping. So this is not only a very functional knife, a very usable knife that's in my pocket quite a bit, judging by the snail trails that you see all over it. It's a knife that I use, that I love, and it is as fidgety as they come. That'd be number 1.5. Number 1.5, take 2 is the Nymble. Guys, the Nymble was the first knife to come into my possession to check all the boxes for me. It's a small knife, check. It's a cool looking knife, check. It has multiple methods of deployment, check. It has great detent, check. Has middle finger or thumb rolling, finger flicking hole, check. Has a finger choil that allows me to use it, check. I mean, it literally checked all the boxes. And when you look at the Grant Gripper, it checks all the same boxes. It's just in a bigger package and a different blade. But getting back to the Nymble, because it is my number 1 multi-deployment fidgety knife, or 1.5. It is being smaller. It is much more nimble, no play on words there, to open all the different methods of deployment. It has a slow roll if I want to slow roll it. I can middle finger flick it. It takes absolutely no effort. I can hit the regular flipper. I can hit the top flipper. Whoop. Thumb flick was a little bit tighter because I'm on the thumb bar, or on the lock bar, but I can thumb flick it. Just for the record, guys, I never thumb flick knives. I don't think I ever have, unless it has thumb studs, and if I can, I reverse finger flick it. But then I get down to the looks of this knife. This knife is absolutely gorgeous. To me, it's also a work of functional art. I love the frag pattern. I love the owner, John and Jamie, the company. I think they are absolutely fantastic human beings who have really designed a group of fantastic knives with the Nymble family, the soon-to-be released relative, the Thick Boy, which I also have, which is a fantastic knife, and just everything they do, guys. Just great knives, great people. And these are my 5 top fidgety knives, with an honorable mention that only has a single deployment method. So I ask at the end of every video, because I sincerely want you guys to do this if at all possible. And it is possible, because all it takes is a little effort. Just look out for the guy or gal to your left. Look out for the guy or gal to your right. Look out for one another. Treat each other with kindness and love. Know that you're not always going to get along. You're not always going to have the same opinions on heat treats. You're not always going to have the same opinion on different manufacturers. But it is okay to debate those things. It is okay to love someone with different opinions. That is what makes us human, guys. Just choose Just choose debate over hate. Go forward with love in your heart. Going forward with love in your heart. Debate over hate. Everything will work out great. I love you all. Peace.